Well, I think we should get started. We're a minute or so after the top of the hour there. Hey, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Uh, as you've signed up and seen today, we're going to talk about how we designed and built a human AI solution, not just a concept, but something that's real, something that's working, something that's scalable. The system we built combines automation with intentional human input. That's the big focus, the human input side of it, not just putting people in the loop of a human in the loop solution, but letting people drive it, right? Um, what we'll show you today is how it started, what changed, the principles that guided the transition from the idea to the operational service. We have a few slides that we'll cover there. Then we'll actually get into the this little demo app that we have created, or this app that we created to show in this demo here. Um, yeah, we'll go from there. So quick housekeeping, there should be the Q&A button down below. You can feel free to ask questions. We definitely have time at the end to go through those different questions and open up from there. I do see something in the chat bubble. Yes, there we go. So yeah, Mike, any other housekeeping that I'm missing?
Nope.
Great. So hi, my name is Keith Mangold. I'm a human-centered AI designer. That's kind of a fun title, right? I mean, it's what I'm doing at the moment. I focus on designing systems where humans and AI collaborate effectively. Over the years, my passion is heavily for helping organizations find the right technology, not just for the sake of innovation, but to actually improve how they work and what they're doing. It's more about making the real improvements in productivity, real improvements in their process and decision making. It's all about helping people and systems work smarter together, right? And Mike, my partner on this journey, is an enterprise architect and human AI strategist himself. Together, we kind of we're been rethinking what it means to build with AI, not just a bolt-on. Mike?
Thanks, Keith. As Keith said, I'm Mike Einengren, and my passion is to really help complex organizations plan a human AI future. Now, to do that, we align AI strategy with lean investment planning, right? From a lean agile perspective, analyze and optimize processes, and help design and deliver working agentic AI solutions that solve real problems. So behind the scenes and for the nerds, we kind of do this with a mix of scaled agile and process intelligence, user experience design, enterprise architecture, DevSecOps, ITSM, and a smattering of other things that are not new, but really helpful along this journey.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Um, so to kind of go to the problem and the challenge, just starting with that a little bit here, we have a client that needed a better way to grow their sales pipeline. This human AI example will show you is on the sales and marketing side of things, but obviously this can be applied to all kinds of different scenarios. But our client needed a better way to grow their sales pipeline. They didn't have a clean list of prospects, a strong CRM system, data to work from, et cetera. They were doing a lot of manual work, when it comes to lead generation from Google searching, LinkedIn browsing, spreadsheets, external services they were subscribed to. ChatGPT was helping them write some messages. The kind of work that people do for lead generation and stuff that's tedious, repetitive stuff. May be difficult to scale or repeat with some consistency. Um, they had played with some AI tools to speed up their message generation, but one of the things that they found in our observations was those messages felt off. We've all played with ChatGPT, right? Or many of you have, obviously, in the AI side of things. You've said, hey, let's go play with ChatGPT, have it write an email message for me or something. It feels cold. Yes, this is about writing a cold outreach solution, but it was too cold of an email. The messages that the system generated lacked context. The AI didn't know who was talking to or why. Messages seemed just generic and disconnected, right? We've all received those emails that says, hi, insert name here, and body below type of thing that goes to 1,000 different people. Um, Even when the system stepped in to when the human stepped in to clean up the content, there was really no way, no structured way at least, for the system to learn from that feedback. Each edit was a dead end. You make a change and that was it. The friction made it impossible to improve over time.
So, Keith, this is kind of a common pattern I know we've seen a mix of existing systems and APIs and artificial intelligence that can't really adapt, scale, or improve. And I know our audience probably has experience with chatbots not really being helpful and then kind of sometimes maybe screaming at the computer screen to no effect, right? So
Exactly.
really, whether it's chatbots or the AI marketing solution we're going to show you here, we need to design something that learns, adapts, and improves over time. So for this to work, to make this AI deliver real value at scale, we needed more than just automation. We need a better human AI solution. And so we have an approach. Typically, we use a three-part approach to designing and delivering human AI solutions. And some of this stuff, folks, I'm just going to tell you, is not novel. It is not brand new. Personally, I learned this first one called GQM, Goals, Questions, Metrics approach from a NASA scientist 20 years ago, right? So, but it works and it's simple, which is why we like to use it. So the first part, the intent of the goals, questions, metrics approach is to focus on the goals, ask the right questions, and determine outcomes and metrics for accountability, right? Making sure the system's actually working. Sometimes we've heard phrase like OKRs, objectives, key results, same kind of thing. The second part is kind of once we got the goals, we ask the right questions, we need to understand the process and technology solution options to understand what's really happening with the process. It's not what someone got in the conference room and said, oh, I think we do XYZ. What's really happening? What are the systems telling us that we're doing, right? And simulate them at scale. So, for example, we can use simulation data to balance, hey, we think we should have the AI do 70% of this process and the human do 30%. Well, what's the risk of that, right? What's the risk of the AI doing too much and embarrassing us by maybe um, misquoting a price of an airline seat, which happened with a Canadian airline, for example, or all kinds of other bad examples that have happened when there have not been enough human supervision. On the other hand, maybe we are not using enough AI and we're having too much expensive human time to do tasking that AI can do, right? So we got to figure out where that balance is. And once we figure that out, you have a good idea of how much humans should do versus how much AI should do, we actually build something, right? The third part is human AI DevOps, designing, developing, deploying, and keyword continuously improving the working human AI solution. And Keith is going to speak quite a bit to the machine learning part of AI that really helps automate that continuous improvement part. So again, Keith is going to show the working end product of this approach, the human AI solution. We're not going to talk about the process technology solution options, that whole process mining and modeling today. That's going to be for a future webinar with Roland. But we're gonna show you something working today.
Thanks, Mike. So, as Mike mentioned, we use that framework of the goals, question, metrics, just kind of as a core of what we do at LSA Digital. But the goal here with this was to improve that outreach performance, right, at a lower cost. We can all, write emails and go from there, but we wanted to write more emails, cold outreach emails at a lower cost. Man, I feel like with this all of a sudden that we're like big spammers or something, but that's not trying not what we didn't develop here. So we asked in the process, where does human input make the biggest impact? That's more what the focus on. When should people intervene in the cold outreach process? When should AI be trusted to run without the human input, right? Um, so we measure that in successive business terms. Are we getting more qualified leads? Is the cost per lead going down? Are we spending less time training or correcting the AI? That's the type of different goals that we were looking for there.
And from an enterprise perspective, right, these kinds of metrics, the ones that matter, right? We're getting more leads. Are we getting more leads at a lower cost, right? And what is the AI time to value, right? So we deploy this thing. Can we please give our time back to our people sooner rather than later, right? That's what justifies AI investments at scale, right? Helping us set a North Star to say, here's where we want to be with this AI technology, right? And that helps us avoid getting stuck in proof of concept playing with the technology land. That's our approach.
So, shifting a little bit over to now the actual process from there. Um, the initial solution that we developed was based upon this N8N workflow. If you're not familiar with what N8N is, it's similar to Zapier or Make. It's a low code, no code automation workflow process. Um, Keyword there, automation, right? And I call it the word automation is because we needed more than just automation in this process. So we found this N8N workflow from this TikToker. I was scrolling through TikTok somewhere, probably on an island, exploring and said, hey, oh, that's a cool workflow with this process that will help kind of solve this problem. Um, that workflow did a process where it went to Google, did a Google search, it pulled in their profile, pulled in their company info, and ran a basic ChatGPT prompt for generating the emails. It was cool. It was neat. Um, but when I started plugging that in and started trying to use that to solve the problem, I saw there were some clear limits. The emails weren't just cold outreach. They felt cold, right? They lacked personalization. They lacked that tone, that human context that I was talking about a little bit ago. So we had to find a way to change that. There were no enterprise features. Obviously, we work with companies to help do, enterprise scaling and enterprise architecture type of stuff. So that's mindset behind everything that we do here. Um, but there was no structured feedback with it. There was no version memory. There was no way for the system to learn from what worked and what didn't work in the process. And so that's where we knew we needed to take the system from just a basic N8N or Zapier workflow to a more scalable service, one that included people in the loop, then got smarter over the time.
Keith, a lot of clever innovation today starts on YouTube and TikTok, and I tend to be impressed, and I think that is really important that folks are
Mhm.
thinking about how technology can drive us forward and given those small examples, right? From an enterprise perspective, and you kind of mentioned this, right? Clever might not be scalable, reliable, responsible, and effective in the field, right? For thousands of folks over hundreds of days. So we needed version control, role-based feedback, compliance-ready observability, that is transparency into what this thing is really doing, right? What decisions is it making on our behalf, right? Um, and and that would give us more of an effective human AI solution, not just another kind of cool script.
Exactly. So that's where we stepped back and wanted to reframe the approach. We wanted a solution where we were just adding the automation. We didn't want just one, two, three, ABC, step ABC through it. We can all write scripts that do that, right? Or build the automation to do that much easily these days. We wanted to build that human AI system that could evolve, could learn and truly partner with the humans, not just the tool that gets dropped into the process and you go, okay, goodbye. Please give me leads in the future, right? And so that mindset shift shows up here in the kind of some of the three core principles that we were targeting with this build. Um, First, the system needed to ask for help. It should recognize the uncertainty and it should proactively involve a human when the confidence of information it has is low or nuance is required. Not just about error handling, right? Every system has errors at some point, but it was more about the intelligent escalation with the human. Another part being context matters. AI can process. We've all given maybe a PDF or a document and everything up to it, to AI and said, here, using all this information, go from there. But humans bring judgment a bit better, in our opinion, still. Maybe AI will get there at some point, but we wanted to help it understand the why behind the message, the tone, the timing, the relationship. And without that human context, without that personalization that we bring, the AI outputs we all know can feel, very robotic and tone deaf. And then finally, we wanted to learn from the edits as we are working with the system. The feedback that we give it isn't just a fix. It doesn't just change the email that we send out. It's a learning moment for both the human and the AI system in that process. Whether it's a strategic wording change or a redirect, the system should absorb that feedback and that input and approve its next decision and its next draft the next time it creates a message. So now we'll dig into the build of the application. So kind of breaking this into three specific parts here. First one is obviously with our human in the loop mindset. Excuse me. Human in the loop mindset, the human starts the process. One of the things that we built at the very beginning of this is very targeted cold outreach process, and I'll show that where we specify, a job title and what product line and service we're trying to target with people that have a specific job title. Once we do that, then the AI agent takes control. It runs with it from there. It says, hey, Keith wants to find different people that have this job title there. The lead AI agent goes, hey, what do I need to do? Well, I need to find their profile information. I need to do some company research. I need to do the retraining. I'll dig into that a little bit more here. And then finally, you'll see we'll get back to the process here, where the human returns and gives the approval and review and helps train the system. Um, so with that said, we'll kind of come back to this diagram a few times throughout the next little bit of this demo here to show how the human AI system is
So
built.
to summarize, Keith, the human's going to ask for something. He's going to demand something get done. He's going to swivel chair to the agent and say, I need you to do some heavy lifting for me. And then that heavy lifting is going to happen, but the human's going to say, I'm not sure I really trust you to be talking on my behalf to people. And so we inject the human judgment at the end before that message goes out. Is that about
Correct.
right?
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. Um, yep. And that's exactly what we'll show within the feedback here. So really quickly, I'm on to shift gears. If you're a non-technical person, obviously, I could spend hours talking about the technical, geeky side of things for this, but this system was overall built all using AI in and of itself. I want to say all, probably um, 80%, because you still have to touch it as a programmer doing things. But we use a tool called Replit. It's a vibe coding. If you're not familiar with vibe coding is basically using AI prompts to develop an application. If I'm not necessarily promoting or selling or not selling the Replit.com application, but it's pretty cool in the process where you give it some prompts and say, hey, I want you to change something, and it changes the colors and whatever and changes the logic and fixes it. It's great on many things, really crappy on many things too. It's still a learning process with all those things. That's kind of the core part we had with that. We also have throughout this, the AI agent has to be trained, and the AI agent has to be told that there are certain tools for it to use. So, excuse me, we have it connected with Google. custom search API, one piece that we have it connected up to Tavily for company and market research information. We have it connected up to Apify to do a bunch of LinkedIn profile scraping, just a API that they have for that. And then we are using behind the scenes fine-tuning models with open AI, so you get your trained data, and I'll kind of cover this on a very high level in a little bit. But those are kind of the different pieces of the puzzle on the technical side behind the scenes that made this application work.
And I'll call out especially that the fine tuning that Keith is showing here is especially an important view for the concept of machine learning operations, ML ops, which is kind of an emerging field that says, hey, let's take what these scientists are developing in terms of the AI model, and let's take real operational feedback and inject it into the model, which is what Keith is doing automatically.
Right. So kind of the meat of this application as I covered here, trying not to go super crazy with flipping screens, but as we talked about here with the human start side here, the target criteria, they're just called discovery batches within this application. And so what the user does here, the human comes in here and says, "Hey, I want to, build a batch, and I want to find people with a specific job title." So we'll find director of enterprise applications, for example, and what different service line are we targeting them? Now we've loaded this up with LSA data information for the sake of demo purposes, but obviously if you were using something similar to this, insert your service now type of thing, and we just want to target this service line. Uh, by doing this, this helped give that AI context, right? We're a consulting firm that helps do digital transformation, and everything that we do, whether it's from UX research design to agile transformations to your Eris Alphabet Jira consulting services, different things that our team does. We wanted to make sure that when we're targeting somebody out there, this tool targets the right person with the specific job title and gives that context to it. And just for the sake of this, I could type in USA or whatever. I'm just going to limit this down to Chicago, um, and find people in the Chicago area and go from there. So as soon as I do this process, now we are out of the human aspect side of it. We said, "Hey, machine, run with it from there." And that's now where the AI agent is starting its process. It's kicking it off. I don't know why it is creating too long. It figures you actually go to show a demo. There we go. We've all been in software demos where it's worked perfectly until you actually do the live demo, then it sits and waits, right? So here on this screen, this is just some showing here what it's doing. The AI agent, as I covered here, it is going through the process and doing the profile discovery. I just gave it this base information. It's figuring out with, hey, okay, Keith just asked me to find all these people with this job title in a specific area to target this service. What do I need from it, right? And I need to find their profiles. I need to find those prospects first. So it says, hey, what are my tools and resources to go do that? Well, it knows that it has access to that Google custom search API, and it knows how to go out and, do a search for those different profiles. It knows that it has LinkedIn profiles available using the Apify side. So it knows it can do that different type of searching there. So that AI agent has been trained to do that. And it's just figures for some odd reason it's going to argue with me right now. But anyways, um, so it knows it's going to do that. It knows it needs all those different resources. And that's kind of very typical of an AI agent. You still have to tell it what tools are out there in those different functions that it has. So it's going to go through all those different prospects. And for example, maybe it's still working behind the scenes, but it's going to scrape the profiles. It's going to check in with us every now and then and say, hey, I've scraped profiles, I've got the company information, and I've generated communications. And that's the important function that we're trying to get to at the end. Because within our workflow here, what we're trying to do is that message orchestration, right? We're trying to do that message generation in the process. So the AI in motion side here is going through the process and building all those. So I'll go into a batch that I created yesterday, for example, here, and I'll find these people. And it found example, I have it limited just to giving me ten of them at the moment, but this is all live data from this random scraping. So all publicly accessible information that you're seeing on the screen here. Thanks, Google and LinkedIn. Found that, wow, how easy it is for everybody to find your information, right? So this person up here, it found him, found their information, and says, hey, here's your details. So what we did is we got their LinkedIn profile. The AI agent said, hey, let's get their LinkedIn profile and let's get their company profile. It did a search on, say, hey, this person works for this company. Do a quick search of that company, find some, key information about that company, what they do, what they're talking about in the news, what they're talking about on LinkedIn, discussion boards, et cetera, from there. Get all that information, give all of that context in, yes, a basic ChatGPT 4.0 prompt, right? That's all that it does, wrapped in our prompt logic. I'm sure many of you have seen 1,000 different ChatGPT prompts where I want you to, get all this information that I'm going to give you from their LinkedIn profile, from the service line that we're targeting, and I want you to give me a summary. So it just built. This to me isn't life-changing or earth-shattering at all or anything special, but we gave it a prompt. We gave it the information from that LinkedIn summary, and it gave us a professional snapshot on Brian as opposed compared to the context that we're looking for. It told us some different outreach angles on how we can maybe approach Brian based upon the service we're targeting and some unique connectors for it. So got all that information, scraped it, and then most importantly, used all of that to generate a communication. So down here, for example, is a draft communication that the system generated. So that's the end of the AI agent process there is going from uh, the human starting the process, the AI agent doing the scraping, the end communication generation from there. So back to our human side of this. The AI in motion has done its work. It'll send me an email behind the scenes when it's all done to say, hey, I've done the work. Now it's ready for you, Keith, to go back in and kind of review those different communications. So what I go through here, and this is just this basic screen where what the human is the system is asking the human to do is to come in here and review the email. So here's an example email where it got this information for this Elise and it used it for a specific service line, probably some demo data I was playing with, and it wrote an email to them. So for me, my goal here is to then look at this email and go, hey, uh, how does this email fit with when I look at Elise's profile, do a little bit of research on my side? Is this the right candidate? Is this the right person? Is this how I would write an email? Does it use my tone? Is it talking about our service or product that we're trying to sell to them properly? Is it describing, we've given the the model, hey, this is what this service does, and this is how we sell it, and this is what we do. And obviously, the more context, the better on that. But now that it produced this email, I'm going to tell it, hey, yes, I liked this email, yes or no, or not yes or no, but kind of a star rating. We found that giving it that star rating and training the model with that information helps get some better output in the future. And then we give it some feedback and suggestions. Why didn't you like this? Or why did you like this? And my example that I always use because I'm not very creative sometimes is email doesn't talk about tacos on Tuesday. So you give it some information. Now, I've used that example enough times that at some point, the model is going to start including tacos in different, hey, let's get together for Taco Tuesday, one of these points, because it's learning from this. And that's the exact purpose that we're looking for. We want that human side to help train the model so that the cold outreach doesn't sound as cold. Yes, whenever people get an email from Keith, it's always talking about getting together for Taco Tuesday, right? So what I would do on this is I can come up here, I can get the email, I can make changes to it if I want to, etc. From there. It stores the history, it stores what was there before, it stores what was there after, so that the model can learn from that process going forward. Not just the final output, because the more information you give the fine-tuning model within OpenAI, that helps the process, right? So then I would make the changes, approve and send, and kind of go from there. That's where the human is reviewing that. So kind of give you a little bit of an example here. This was at the very beginning of some of the data that we were loading into this when we said, hey, let's build a webinar behind this tool that we created. This initial basic email that it did to this Natalie person is, I hope this email finds you well. My name is Sarah and I work at a consulting firm. Well, how generic is that, right? We help companies do this, etc. I'd love to schedule a brief call. Do you have 15 minutes, right? We've all seen very, very basic emails come across our box just like this. Um, and so by going through that communication feedback that I just showed you, where I gave this email X amount of stars and I gave it feedback that doesn't look like, um, I was then starting to train the model to make more appropriate emails. So if I jump ahead to, okay, 16 days ago or something, let's see what we have here. Um, I came across your profile and noticed your role. So the email is now a little bit more personal because it talked about who they are and what they do. And it talks about their company that they work for, the organization, right? Um, and so we specialize in AppRat that help similar companies achieve significant improvements. So kind of another thing, like I would give feedback on this email here that maybe needs to jump out and say, hey, I've helped similar organizations, because this isn't a company per se, for example, right? It's an organization as opposed to a company. So it needs to learn when you give it that example. And that's the feedback you would give the model. So the human, once again, is driving that loop, and giving it feedback. And obviously, the ultimate goal as we progress to an email that it generates 5 days ago, as opposed to an email, as you saw, 22 days ago, because we've been giving it more information, it has become more specific to that individual, right? Hey, here's this more detailed email. We've done this because we've done that. It uses our brand voice that we've trained it over the different examples that we've used. And so it got smarter and smarter from there and to be able to fit what we say. And for example, like one of these, Mike loves his 2-pagers documents that he has, and we have assessments that we send out. And it learned over time that, hey, we send those things out. So the email that gets generated by the system starts knowing, hey, let's include this in there because that's how we do it. So that's where the continuous learning process that we go through this will do. Um, there's another agent that goes behind the scenes, as we kind of showed here, that what that will do over time is it will get that information. I think it's going to do it. I think it does every week right now. It'll get all that feedback that I gave it, and it'll build another fine-tuning model up in AI and open AI to then keep going from there to keep training it over and over again, so that the next time we generate an email, it is a bigger fit, or it's a bigger fit, better fit for that potential target. So yeah, so that's, and then as you saw, we hit approve and send, and boom, the email goes out, and hopefully profit. I always think of a South Park episode. Um, anyways, that could go down a whole rabbit hole that I probably shouldn't go down with South Park, right? So that's that process. So that's kind of the app. we're not obviously trying to sell an app in the process. We're just talking about how we put humans in the loop of that process. And so that's more what we're trying just to share kind of what we learned in that process, obviously with this webinar. Um, and that's the core of this system, in the learning loop, right? Where every interaction becomes an opportunity for the system to improve the next one. We wanted to make sure, yes, we're giving it input on terms of the prospects we're looking for. The AI agent does its work. The human gives that review, and we're storing that feedback. That feedback isn't just a side note, but that feedback storage is structured. It's reused. We captured those notes, those ideas, the versions of those emails, and used that to uh, train future responses. And in doing so, that allows this whole process to be much more scalable to teams of 10 or 10,000, makes it ready for easier for enterprise adoption in that process because it is being able to be reused throughout the whole, that trained data can be reused throughout the whole system. Um, and one of the things with this that we wanted to really focus on was that this human AI solution that we've developed isn't just automation, right? Um, like I said at the beginning, we didn't want to just build that process that is insert name, hit button, go, and the system does it, right? We wanted that feedback driven process where the human role isn't minimized. That human role, what we saw with getting that feedback to us, that's essential, right? The system is guided by the people. It's not just blindly pushing out emails. It's not just saying, hey, here's your profile. Here's what I got out of it. Scrape it and go from there and move on. Maybe it'll be there at some point in the future, but it'll be trained to be more like the human in that process. So it captures that feedback, it captures that edit, and the why behind those edits, and that transparent side helped it get better with every single interaction. Um, and that's kind of just where we go to with that kind of the quote on the bottom of the slide that it's not just the human in the loop, it's the human driving the loop. We started the car at the very beginning by telling it, hey, this is what we want to target, this is what we want to do. And yes, I'm good with your output at the very end, and let's finish it up and send from there. Um, and so what we kind of learned throughout this process is that the client didn't just want AI for the buzz. I know we all have probably received those different things from your boss saying, "Hey, where can we use AI in what we're doing? We have to use AI for something, right?" Um, but we wanted to make sure that we built something that was done in a scalable way to increase the value so that the teams can be freed up for more strategic work, right? For more creative, high value added work that they were doing. Um, works, work smarter, not harder, right? Mindset. Um, And the solution had to do more than just automate what they were doing, right? It had to adapt, it had to learn, it had to improve with every cycle. And so that's where kind of some of our four big takeaways that we found with this was let's define the problem first. In too many AI projects, we start with just the tool. Yep, let's just have ChatGPT write a whole bunch of things, right? Well, that's not what the problem truly was here. Let's start by solving a real bottleneck in the outreach. Let's design the system for human output. That was obviously a key part of our process here, right? Is that um, if it was too hard for the human to give feedback, then people won't, right? We wanted to make it easy. We're familiar with the stars. We're all familiar with the little feedback. Even one version of the app, we had it so that the person can, record their voice feedback in there. And so um, let's make it easier for the human to provide their feedback and make it not be a burden on them. And then we wanted to enhance the collaborative intelligence. The best outcomes didn't come from the AI. The best outputs didn't come from just the human, right? We've all made typos. We've all used the wrong information in context, but it came from the human and the AI working together. That's where we found the best output of the emails and content generation that it was doing when human AI when the human and the AI outputs are working together. Um, and then another piece is we wanted to prioritize the flow over the features. We can all sit there and put in our backlog all kinds of different features that we want the system to do, right? We can add all the capabilities in the world into any software application. But if the team and the users can't move smoothly through that process, it fails. And so that's where we wanted to work on that coordination between what the human is doing, what the AI agent is doing, and then back to the human. And that's where we wanted to make sure that we were focusing on the flow with the human in the loop much more than just the features. Maybe even why I don't remember why we took out the voice recording functionality for whatever reason. Maybe it just wasn't efficient type of thing. So it's not all need to be there. So yeah, so that's what we learned, and that's kind of our overall process of how we built, um, a basic human in the loop, and we how we designed and built this human AI solution where it's working together in the process, not just slapping AI onto things, um, but let AI kind of go first and do its work, but then make sure the humans are there to review that process. Let's see. Yeah, I guess we're fine on time. It's only 2:42 for me, so we have time. I forgot my icebreaker, Mike. I'm down under at the moment, so it's 2:42 in the morning here for me. Um, but we're happy to stay on and answer some questions. And so, where do we go from here? If any of this stuff that we talked about resonates with you, if you're trying to scale or struggle with getting, AI integrated into your system in a more meaningful, impactful way, other than just that bolt-on, we'd love to keep the conversation going with you. We'd love to hear your questions, thoughts, ideas on what we're doing. If you have to drop, we absolutely understand. Please check out our website, human-ai.com, for upcoming frameworks, insights, and stuff that we're adding to that, active projects on a regular basis. We'll be doing further webinars. Mike talked about a process improvement webinar stuff that he's going to work with with Roland, and things that are going from there. So, and of course, we're happy to talk if you want any other guidance on enterprise architecture and human AI strategic design from there. Um, Mike, were there any questions in the chat or
Yeah.
yeah, you come in?
Just a quick update on the next upcoming webinars. The one that I did talk about was the process analysis one coming up next to Roland. And then there's going to be another one on enterprise architecture. That is how we actually take, hey, this is the optimal process. This is how much AI versus how much humans. Now, how do we actually pair that with the technology we already have versus what we need to add for AI, right? And how do we manage the entire life cycle of that technology? So we're going to answer that in the third webinar. So those are the next two webinars coming up. That said, we have a question in the audience already. So, how long did it take you to build the app?
Oh, um, good question. I got to think about that. It was probably over a couple weeks. I want to say from kind of the concept to actually being able to produce it. Um, some legit output. Um, I say legit output, right? Because when we first started it, it was just that very robotic side of things, and that was like, hey, we knew that's not what we wanted. And as with any application, it keeps progressing, right? There's new features. Um, Kind of the cool thing with using Replit and the vibe coding that I'm able just to go into Replit and say, hey, make a new specific change. Um, I can right now add a new feature in a matter of 30 seconds, right? So it kind of just progressed as we were on different calls with the client and demoing, kind of going from there what needed to happen. So
Okay. Next question. Can you talk a bit about the intentionality of integrating the human into the system? How do you determine where the human should interact with the system?
good question. You want to try that one, Mike?
Yeah, so from yeah, and through the iterations you were just talking about and building it, Keith, of course, we were working with our user experience experts as well and trying to understand. okay, so where's the heavy lifting and where can the human get involved? And this is a question that we always ask, no matter how complex a solution, no matter how many steps. You showed kind of three chunks of it, Keith. And we kind of determined that, hey, in the case of this version of the solution that we built, in the middle part that Keith showed, we can have the AI do all the heavy lifting and present an answer back to the human, and then say, okay, the critical risk here is that the AI is going to say something that is not good on the human's behalf. So we decided that risk is where the injection of the human needed to happen, right? And so that's the example here in this scenario. Again, a different scenario where there's a chain of messages that might be sent or other actions that might be taken, there will be other injection points of the human in that process. But that's what we're going to talk about in the next webinar, is trying to determine with a little more certainty where the human's injected versus just letting the AI kind of take action. Okay, so that was answered. What is the biggest challenge of integrating this tool with an existing workflow constrained by quality process and compliance like AS 9100?
I am not specifically familiar with
I'm not
AS90.
familiar with AS 9100 specifically either, but from a general perspective, the the challenge is kind of understanding it as with most GRC, right? So what is the trade-off of the cost and complexity of putting in controls versus accepting the risk, right? So as we were, and we're going to talk about this again in the next webinar, is to understand the process, come up with some different process model options, say, hey, this point in the process, A, B, and C, these 3 points in the process have risk of 10%, 50%, 90%. Okay, well, the part in the 90%, that means we might need to put in some risk, some controls, and develop some preventative controls or some responsive controls so that the AI can either ahead of time, we can actually correct what it's going to do, or we can actually check what's happening in the log files, what it did do, right? That's the transparency part that Keith talked about earlier in the presentation. So that's kind of how we approach the GRC from a process perspective.
And I just, while you were talking there, Mike, I did a really quick Google search on AS9100 there so I could at least maybe talk to a little bit. Um, and Google AI overview for our educational aspect is just it's a internationally recognized aerospace quality management system standard. So without obviously knowing more than just that little dig into it, obviously like, oh, it's similar to builds upon the ISO 9001 standard. Okay. So I mean I think with that is what we were trying with that kind of standard thinking here. Um, that's why I think, or that's not why I think, that's why we structured this the quality that the output gives based upon that human feedback, right? That versioning, the learning loop that we have in that process, that every single message that we edit, every time AI makes a decision point, all of that, excuse me, it's logged. That we can review that, we can audit it, and we can feed that information back into possibly some quality system, right? To say, hey, is the quality of these messages getting better and better over time? More than happy to continue that conversation and dig into that a little bit more to understand the context of your question there, Skylar. Thank you for that. Thanks for challenging me this at 2:50 in the morning.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, I think that is it for today.
Great.
Thank you very much, Keith.
So I think, I don't know, there's one more slide. Oh, yep, one more slide. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us today. We're excited what obviously AI can do for all of us. Not when it just replaces people, but when it works alongside them. Um, and even when it does replace people, because that's the reality of things, right, Mike?
Yeah, I mean,
If
let's
you're
get it to do the heavy lifting for us, and so we can be more creative and focus on the things that matter, right?
exactly, yep. So, thank you everybody for your time today and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.